Righto, so a long time coming, part 4. We've just had to make sure a couple of things were right on this machine before we started doing anything. Fit your carburetors up, do your clamps up, put your airbox on, do your clamps up, put your bottom on, and that way we're getting a true value flow of air through the system. Especially when we start playing with air, fuel screws and the like, you don't need to be adding excess air that you don't usually have. So grab your accelerator cable in the top of your yoke, make sure that's home. You'll have a lot of slack here. So you can take the slack out with your adjuster. You want some slack, you don't want a lot, but you want some slack. So if you go too far, for argument's sake, you need to come back. So you want a couple of mil of slack, so that when you start the engine, if your butterflies are sitting like that, if they're not all 100%, which is what they should be, if one sits like this, that's where you get everything revs. So make sure there's slack there, make sure your idle screw is off, so it's wound up off your carburetor body. When we start it, we're going to have to hold it running with the throttle while we turn the idle up, so then it'll run, and then we can start going through and processing everything. So you kind of got to get your hands and everything in a spot where you can move everything. So, and once we get it running, I'll have to turn the fan on, because you kind of need, sitting in a shed, you kind of need airflow over your engine. So once we get it going, it'll be a bit louder, and I might have to talk a bit louder itself. So we'll get it running. Hear that knock, knock, knock going out of the top of the engine. So we've got these two relatively close, but we'll get it in a bit closer again. So we've got the centre one, and we make them all the same. to do, basically, is go through and get our air fuel mixture screws right. So air fuel mixers, they're fuel screws. They are not air screws, they are fuel screws because they are on front of the carburetor. So they adjust the amount of fuel in the carburetor into the engine. So because they're at the front of the engine, screwing them out or lifting them up will allow more fuel in, which will make it richer. If you've got a really, really black spark plug, you need to screw the screw in, which will shut, same as the needle and slide in the carburetor, you'll shut the fuel down. So they are fuel screws. Out is rich, down is leaner. So now it's just a matter of rolling through. What we're going to try and do is we're going to lift the revs up. We'll turn the fan back on. We're going to lift the revs up to about 1400 RPM. And then that'll have the engine running at a reasonable rate. From there we don't touch it for a bit. We screw the air screw on number one, the fuel screw on number one, screw that down until the engine slows, and then we lift it out until it picks up again. We do the same with number two, we do the same with number three, we do the same with number four, and by then the engine should have revved up. I don't know exactly how far, but it should rev up is the theory. And then we go through, we adjust it back to 14, and then we do it again, and that is within rule of thumb, QE, of where you need to be. QE is close. So that's what we're up to now. So we'll start it, get the fan going, start it, wind the revs up, and then we'll run through and just play with the fuel screws down until they go slow, up until they pick up, and we'll see what happens. And that popping is because one of them is already lean. So now what we'll do now is for a lot of guys have probably heard of the ColorTune but not seen them. So now that everything's stinking hot and it's going to hurt when you touch it, we'll go through and pull all the spark plugs out one by one and put the glass plug in there and see how close we are. So the glass spark plug is basically a spark plug, but the top of it is glass, so you can actually see the colour of the flame inside down the side of the stalk, and you can adjust your fuel screw according to the colour of the flame. So you don't want it orange because orange is too rich, so you want it a nice blue colour, but you don't want it a pale blue because pale blue is lean. So we just take it, we find where the orange is and then just wind it down a little bit. So we might give it 5 minutes to calm down and cool down a little bit, and then we'll drop this in and we'll see how far we got it, how close we got it. Righto, so it's cooled down a bit. We'll just pop that out, just so we can have a bit of a look and see how far or close or how close we are. You see that? So I would say maybe a touch lean. So we'll go through and we'll just see where we are here, just going from where we are. We'll see how far out we are. So that's half, that's one, it's 1.5. So just two, where it just touched, don't screw it down, just where it touches. So that's 2 out. And we might even still be a little bit lean. Was that 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 2 out. But there again, all the numbers in the workshop manuals are for brand new carburetors, brand new bikes, brand new. These things are now 45 years old. You're kind of going to expect that not all numbers and specs are going to work. So remembering that even the floats on this set of carburetors are 29 millimeters to get the fuel height in the right spot. So, you know, just setting everything at 1/4 and 1 1/4 out isn't always going to mean that everything's right. So we'll drop that on there. We'll turn these big lights off. We'll hit the button and see what catches fire. The other thing is, with a glass spark plug, you don't want to sit there and rev it because you will melt your little spark plug. So it's a fairly quick process. Start it, see where your flame is, adjust it, turn it off, because you will overheat your plug and you'll have to buy another one. So we'll see how the camera picks this up. How I was saying, I think that's a bit lean. I think it's lean because it's just the colour of the flame is a light. So what we'll do is we'll bring it out until it goes yellow. But you want to move it slowly because you've got to give the fuel and the air time to mix. starting to go orange there now. Just picking this orange up over on this corner. Let's change that. And you can hear the engine just stalling a little bit. So we'll just wind him back. See how the orange just sort of disappeared? So we'll kind of about there. So with that's a basic setup. So now you can confidently jump on the bike, hit the road, and then it's just a matter of go for a 10-minute ride, come home, let it cool down a bit, pull your plugs out, and then you start reading your spark plugs. You don't want them white, you don't want them pitch black. So you'll work it out. If they're pitch black, you screw your fuel screw down. Only do it quarter of a turn at a time. And then when you've got the blackness out and they're still dark black, then you go an eighth of a turn. It'll take a little while to get them exactly right if you want to go to that nth degree. Now the other thing I should tell you is this is for carburetors with air boxes with basically a normal 4-into-1. It's baffled. If you want to put pods on it and you want to put different kits through it, and don't ask me, I have never done it. I work with this stuff. I don't know what you do. You want to put pods on it, you just change the dynamics of the carburetor, you change the dynamics of the machine, untold. So all of this setup is for carburetors with a normal exhaust pipe and setups. And once again, I'm not a mechanic. This is how I taught myself to do it. You might see stuff and go, the guy doesn't know what he's talking about. You're dead right. But this is how I nut my stuff out. So if it helps you, that's fine. If you can see something that goes, that's no good, well, you change it to the way you think, and yeah, put your replies up and see how it goes. But so that is, you saw the carburetors at the beginning of the video, they were filthy, terrible. This is the exact same set of carburetors on a machine running, so it can be done. Righto, so just to show you what I was talking about with reading the plugs, I can't take it for a ride out on the road, obviously, but I can take it for a run. So we jump on it, we'll run it, I don't know, we'll run it at 4.5, 5,000 RPM, which will be 110, 115 kilometres an hour for a couple of minutes. That'll get everything up to operating temperature. We should have the sparks running at the right temperature, and we'll get some sort of an air-fuel mix to have a look at what the plugs are going to do. So for this, it's going to get loud because we're going to turn the fan on, and the bike's going to be running, obviously. So we'll see what catches fire. And you'll be able to see the gauges here as well, running. Righto. So nothing caught fire. On the bike, it felt like it was just going boo, 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 boo. You can kind of pick it up a little bit on the camera. Varying reasons for that is it's just free rolling. I don't have a load on here, so it'll be different to rolling down a road with more load on it maybe. But the exercise was to look at the spark plugs. So we ran it for that couple of minutes so we can get the plugs hot. So come on down to the spark plugs and we'll have a look. So this is number one. Still a little bit warm. If you looked at it that, you could go, yeah, it's probably a little bit lean. But if you turn it around and look at that, it's, oh, that is very close. How we were talking, you might go up or screw the screw out. Oh, geez, just a tiniest bit. Number two, basically the same. Maybe up that tiniest little bit, just a smidge more fuel. Three, yeah, maybe a third, maybe a quarter of a turn, somewhere between a little bit near a quarter, because it's just that touch white. So definitely up on that one. And this one's black and kind of like glistening red, or whether the camera can pick up the shine. So that one's still getting fuel. So that one goes down. So we need to shut the fuel down on that number 4. So what we'll do now, put them in the bike as they are, 1, 2, 3, 4. Put them in the bike, but number 4, we'll drop the glass spark plug on. And then we'll use the glass spark plug to change the fuel burn. All right, we'll see what happens. So it's definitely orange. The camera's not really picking it up, so we've just about lost all the orange. We've gone down about half a turn. So we've gone down about half a turn. Because it was 2 turns out when we did number 1, and we were seeing how far number 1 was up. So number 4 was about the same. So as we say, you can't set them all at exactly the same, because that's just not how it works anymore when they're 45-year-old. So what you would do now as the owner of the bike, you would take it for another run, come back and check that number 4 plug and then go accordingly. Righto, so we've taken it for a run. We've had a look at the carburetor, look at the spark plugs. We found number 4 is wanting, so we've screwed it down. I've thrown the ColorTune on it and we've adjusted it to somewhere close. So what we'll do now is, because we were happy with the readings off the spark plug before, we'll just go through and show you how far out each individual carburetor is from one another. Like, this is what we're just saying, if setting them all out 1 3/4 screws up, 1 3/4 out, turns out, or 2 turns out, all 4 of them is a base start line. But number 1, for argument's sake, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1/4. So that's 2 3/4 turns out. So that's half, 1, 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/2, 2 3/4. So that's number 1. Number 2, half, 1, 1 1/4. Half, 1, 1 1/4. So that's a big difference in there by itself. Number 3, half, 1, 1 1/2, touch under 1 1/2. 1, 1 1/2, 1. That's so on. The number 4 is now 1, 1, 1 1/4. Half, 1, 1 1/4. So there you go. Setting them your 1 3/4 or your 2 turns is a base. Get it for a run, take it for a run, and then do exactly what I've just done. Read your plugs, and then you can move your screw up and down. So I hope this has helped somebody in some way or other. Thanks for ever ready for the camera and the work and the advice. Happy travels.